good children should act like somebody, and that's their parents. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to part number 5, last part of this 5-part series, and we're ending with advice to children. And we started off with advice to parents. Now we're going to end it with advice to children. And it's so easy as a parent of 3 children to just think about my girls and to think about this advice that I want to give them. But guess what? I have to remember that I have parents. And by God's grace, they're still around, which means that this advice applies to me and what I should look like as a child to my parents. So even today, all of you watching, you're somebody's child, and that's at least God the Father. And the advice that Ephesians 6 is giving to us is that all children should act like somebody, and that somebody should be their parents. Because it's here in Ephesians chapter 6, verse number 1 and 2. Here's what it says. It says, children, that's us, obey your parents in the Lord. Well, this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. The highest honor that we can give, particularly to godly parents, is that we emulate their example. We actually continue their legacy by living out what we've learned from them. And the idea of that expression, act like somebody, it's an expression I've heard back in the day. People would say, like, when you go out, when you're doing what you do, act like somebody. And, it can kind of be pointed to one level of pride. But that's why I like to take that and see it flip to where, we should all be acting like somebody. And if we're children of God, we should be acting like our Father. And so it's really interesting that now when you go through the Bible and you look at Jesus, when he's like pointing out people, when he pointed out the woman with the 2 mites and said, that's what I'm talking about. That's what you need to do. When he pointed out when he pointed out the centurion, and he said, this is what I'm talking about. I haven't seen faith like this. Do you know what people group that Jesus used more often than any others? No, he didn't use Pharisees. He didn't use Sadducees. He actually used children. Look at a couple of them. In Mark chapter 10 and verses 13 through 14, here you see the disciples acting like disciples, acting like students. They're taking their lesson, but now in the practicum, they're not applying it appropriately. They brought young children to him that he should touch him, right? This is what the parents are doing. But then his disciples, they rebuked those. They rebuked the people who were doing what Jesus said do. But they were the teachers, okay? So now they rebuked them. And when Jesus saw it, you know how Jesus felt about it. Literally, as I'm recording this, my father's calling me. This is amazing. But we're going to keep it moving so we can wrap this up. It says, when Jesus saw this, he was displeased. Now count how many verses, how many times in Jesus' life in the Gospels did it say he was displeased? Now we're getting some picture of the meaning that children have to God, but not just the meaning in terms of how he loves them, but look at how valuable they are. Jesus is displeased, and he says to them, suffer, let the children, the little children, to come unto me, and forbid them not. And he could have just said that and left it alone, left it on the table, but he doesn't do that. The teacher, the great teacher, says, because for of such is the kingdom of God. What Jesus was saying here is that of such is the kingdom of God, because this is how people are going to act in the kingdom of God. And we all know that nobody is going to be with God who doesn't act like God. And he uses children to identify God on this earth. This is how he operates. This is how he acts. This is how he talks. This is how he laughs. This is how he behaves. This is how he treats other children because of the way these children were acting. And he used the children to rebuke the other, what's the name I want to call them? He used the children to rebuke the teachers. Brothers and sisters, we all ought to act like somebody. And if we're children of God, that's God. Another instance where Jesus uses the child, he uses children to to show us the way. And this is the advice that we give to us, all of us as children, even to our own children. This is in Matthew 18. And without going too much into what happened in the scenario, in the previous story, he was rebuking them. But now here, he's encouraging them. He's teaching them. It says, whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. Again, he uses a child as an evidence to a heavenly reality. He could not take them. He couldn't shuttle them up to the kingdom and say, hey, look at how God rolls, because this is what the angels are doing. He gets the next best thing. Maybe I would dare even say even better, because now this is a child that's going to be saved by the blood that he plans on shedding not too far hence. And this child is an evidence of his redemption. And he takes the child and says the humility that this child still possesses, because it hasn't been tarnished by the coldness and by the callousness of life like you all have. This is where I want you to be. This is what I want to restore you to. And so children now, I'm speaking now as a parent, as a father to children, the greatest joy that you can pass on to your parents is to take all of the good from them and continue it. And not only that, because all of us have broken parents. We have imperfect parents, sincere but sinful parents. Then if we can take the bad that they've done and not copy that, don't repeat that. As my father used to say, make new mistakes, which means we don't make the old mistakes. That's the greatest legacy that we can give to our parent, no matter how much money we make, no matter what school we go to, no matter what we, quote, accomplish in life, when life itself is actually the greatest accomplishment. When we can embrace this as children today and say, you know what, I am going to act like somebody, and I'm going to act like the good that I saw in my grandmother, the good that I saw in my grandfather, the good that I saw in my principals, the good that I saw in my teachers, the good that I see in my father and my mother today. And this is powerful, because even if with terrible parents, if you have parents that were so challenged that they never even wanted to know you, you can build off of that legacy by not repeating that mistake and making sure I'm going to be involved in my children's life. I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to turn what was a collapsed beam and stand on that to build something better. Or if you were blessed like I have been and like we have been, and that's to have parents that did honor God, that are not perfect, but taught me right from wrong and knew Jesus, we can continue to honor that, build on that by doing just that.